Rain hits the windows of Eternal Bloom Flower Shop like bullets. And then Daniel Kong walks through the door. Not just any man. The Daniel Kong, Manhattan's most feared Korean mafia boss. The man who controls everything from luxury penthouses in Midtown to the shadowy gambling dens in Flushing, Queens. He's not supposed to be here. This tiny flower shop wedged between a noodle house and a pharmacy in Koreatown? This isn't his territory. But his driver took a wrong turn. And fate just detonated 8 months of carefully hidden secrets. Grace Lee has her back turned. She's arranging white lilies in a crystal vase. Her hands move with precision. The same hands that once traced the scars on his chest in their secret apartment overlooking Central Park. She reaches up to adjust the highest stem. Her sweater lifts. And Daniel sees it. The unmistakable curve of an 8-month pregnant belly. The bell above the door chimes. Grace doesn't turn immediately, just calls out in that voice that still haunts his dreams every single night. Welcome to Eternal Bloom. I'll be right with you. He can't breathe, can't move, can't do anything except stare at the woman who vanished from his life without explanation 8 months ago. The woman who's clearly, unmistakably, devastatingly carrying his child. The shop goes silent. That dangerous kind of silence. The kind that falls when a predator enters a room. When the air itself becomes heavy with violence that hasn't happened yet, but everyone knows is coming. Grace must sense it. Her shoulders tense before she turns. Before their eyes meet across 15 feet of space that might as well be 15 miles. The crystal vase slips from her fingers. Everything happens in slow motion. Crystal exploding against hardwood. Water spreading like blood. White lilies scattered like casualties of war. If you're already feeling this tension, hit that subscribe button right now. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. New York? California? Connecticut? Let me know. Because this story is about to tear your heart apart, and trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. Grace. Just her name. But it comes out like a command and a prayer tangled together. She stumbles backward. One hand flies to her belly protectively. The other reaches for the counter because the room is spinning and 8 months of carefully constructed lies are crumbling in real time. His eyes drop to her stomach, and something breaks in his expression. The mask of the cold, calculated mob boss cracks wide open, revealing the man underneath. The one only she ever knew. You shouldn't be here, she whispers. Her voice is shaking, breaking, drowning in the fear that's been eating her alive since the day she signed those papers. Since the day his cousin Marcus showed her the photos. The threats. The signature that looked exactly like Daniel's. He moves, faster than physics should allow. His hand shoots out to catch her elbow as she sways. The touch burns through her sleeve like a brand. Like coming home. Like falling off a cliff. That's my child. Not a question. A statement of fact. Delivered with the certainty of a man who always gets what he wants. Who built an empire on being 3 steps ahead of everyone else. Who never, ever loses. Her silence is answer enough. Something feral crosses his face. Something that would terrify anyone else. But it only makes Grace's heart break because she knows what's coming. Marcus Kong is about to discover what happens when you steal from the devil himself. I can explain, she starts. He shakes his head. His grip on her elbow tightens. Not enough to hurt. Just enough to make it clear. She's not running again. Not this time. Not ever. Later, he says. Voice rough like gravel. First, you're going to sit down before you fall down. And then you're going to tell me why you've been hiding my child for 8 months while I tore this entire city apart looking for you. But she never gets the chance to answer. Because the door opens again. His Lieutenant James walks in. Takes one look at the scene. At Daniel's face. At Grace's belly. His expression shifts from confusion to understanding to barely contained fury in 2 seconds flat. Sir, James says carefully. The way you approach a loaded gun. Your father's been calling. The meeting with the West Side families. Cancel it. Daniel cuts him off without looking away from Grace. Cancel everything. I don't care if the governor himself is waiting. Nothing matters except this. Except her. Except finding out who thought they could take my family from me and live to tell about it. The temperature in the room drops 20 degrees. Grace feels it in her bones. The shift from the man she loved to the monster everyone fears. The transformation that happens when Daniel Kong stops being human and starts being a force of nature. Now let me take you back to where this all began. To help you understand how these 2 people from completely different worlds collided in the first place. How a man who trades in fear fell for a woman who sells hope wrapped in petals and stems. And how one cousin's jealousy nearly destroyed them both. 11 months ago, Grace Lee was just trying to survive. She wasn't born into money or power. Her parents died in a car accident on the Cross Bronx Expressway when she was 9 years old. She was raised by her grandmother Hannah, a woman who survived the Korean War by selling vegetables from a cart in Seoul. A woman who immigrated to New York with nothing but determination and calloused hands. Hannah built Eternal Bloom from the ground up, turned a tiny storefront in Koreatown into a sanctuary. A place where grief and celebration both found expression through carefully arranged flowers. Grace grew up learning that flowers spoke a language more honest than words. That a white rose meant something different than a red one. That timing and placement and intention mattered more than beauty alone. By 26, Grace had inherited her grandmother's gift. She could read people through their flower choices. Could tell when someone was buying apology roses versus celebration roses. When love was new versus desperate. When grief was fresh versus settled into acceptance. The shop became known for arrangements that somehow captured exactly what customers couldn't articulate. Emotions translated into color and texture and scent. Daniel Kong lived in a different world entirely. 43 floors above the city. In a penthouse where Manhattan spread beneath him like a kingdom he'd inherited through blood rather than birthright. His grandfather built the family empire from gambling dens. His father expanded into legitimate businesses that barely masked their criminal origins. 3 generations of Kong men had ruled New York's Korean underworld through strategic violence and calculated alliances. At 34, Daniel had proven himself sharper and more ruthless than his father ever was. He took the family operations digital, laundered money through cryptocurrency, controlled everything from luxury real estate to the shipping containers moving through Brooklyn's ports. His reputation was built on a simple principle. Cross him once and disappear forever. Serve him loyally and prosper beyond imagination. But for all his wealth and power and fear-soaked respect, Daniel was profoundly alone, surrounded by people who either wanted something from him or were terrified of him. Educated at elite schools that separated him from traditional Korean culture, too marked by his family's business to ever fit into legitimate society. He existed in the space between worlds, belonging fully to neither. These two lives should never have intersected. The flower shop girl and the mob prince. But they did. On a March evening, when Daniel's sister Sarah died unexpectedly, an aneurysm at 31, his father sent him to order funeral arrangements because tradition demanded family involvement, even when grief made breathing difficult. Grace was closing up shop when he walked in. This man in a black suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. His face a mask of controlled devastation that she recognized immediately, because she'd worn the same expression at 9 years old, standing at her parents' funeral. "I need flowers for my sister," he said, voice flat and empty. Most florists would have shown him the standard funeral arrangements. White chrysanthemums. Respectful. Traditional. Safe. But Grace saw something in his eyes that made her pause. "Tell me about her," she said gently. He looked at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. Like no one had asked him that in the 3 days since Sarah's death. Like he'd forgotten his sister was a person before she became a tragedy. So he told her. This dangerous man with blood on his hands, sitting on a wooden stool in a flower shop at midnight, told her how Sarah loved sunflowers because they were optimistic, how she collected vintage records, how she was the only one in the family who ever challenged their father, how she wanted to be a teacher, but the family business made that dream impossible. Grace listened, and created something that made him cry for the first time since he was 12 years old. White chrysanthemums for mourning mixed with yellow sunflowers for Sarah's spirit, arranged in a way that felt like sunrise after darkness, like memory without drowning in grief. When he saw it, something cracked open in his chest, something that had been sealed shut for decades. "How did you know?" he asked. Grace shrugged. "Flowers don't lie. They just show us what we're too afraid to say out loud." He came back the next day, not for flowers, but to talk. Then the day after that. Then every evening for 2 weeks. Closing the shop became their ritual. This powerful man and this gentle woman finding something neither knew they needed. Daniel learned that Grace spoke 3 languages, that she could identify flowers by scent alone, that she volunteered at a children's hospital teaching kids to make bouquets. that her laugh was genuine in a world where everyone he knew performed every emotion. Grace learned that beneath the feared reputation was someone lonely and thoughtful, someone who read classical literature, who remembered everyone's names, who carried his sister's death like a physical weight. And she made the dangerous mistake of seeing him as human rather than monster. Their first kiss happened in the shop after hours, rain drumming against windows, Grace explaining the symbolic meaning of peonies while Daniel watched her mouth move. When she finally noticed his staring, the air between them ignited, his hand sliding into her hair, her fingers gripping his jacket, both of them crossing a line they knew they couldn't uncross. "This is dangerous," she whispered against his lips. He smiled. "Everything about me is dangerous. But I promise you're the only person in this city who's truly safe from me." For 3 months, they built something secret and sacred, meeting in her apartment above a bodega in Queens, in restaurants outside Manhattan where no one knew his name, in the flower shop after midnight when the world was asleep, when they could pretend to be normal people falling in love. He taught her about his world in careful doses, never the violence, but the complexity, the way power flowed through invisible channels, how loyalty was currency more valuable than money, why his family's business wasn't something you just walked away from. She showed him hers, the simple joy of creating beauty, the way flowers marked every human milestone from birth to death, the peace that came from working with living things that didn't care about power or fear or reputation. 6 months in, he proposed, not with a ring, but with a key to an apartment in Brooklyn Heights, a place where they could stop hiding. "Move in with me," he said, and she knew what it meant, knew she was choosing his world, knew her grandmother would never approve, knew the danger was real. But she looked at this man who'd shown her parts of himself he'd never shown anyone, and said yes anyway. They married in secret 2 months later. Small courthouse in Connecticut. Just them and his most trusted lieutenant and her childhood friend as witnesses. No family, because his would demand a strategic alliance marriage, and hers would demand she run far away from a man whose hands were stained with invisible blood. That night in their Brooklyn apartment, rain against windows, he gave her a jade bracelet that belonged to his sister. "She would have loved you," he said, voice breaking. Grace wore it every day like armor, like proof that what they had was worth the risk. For 4 perfect months, they lived in their secret bubble. Grace still running the flower shop during the day, Daniel handling business she didn't ask about, meeting every night in their apartment where they cooked together, where he practiced flower arranging with surgical precision, where she fell asleep to his heartbeat and felt safer than she'd ever felt in her life. But Marcus Kong was watching, had been watching since the beginning. Daniel's cousin, who always believed the family business should have gone to him, who resented Daniel's intelligence and success, who saw opportunities where others saw loyalty. And when he discovered Daniel's secret marriage, through sheer accident, walking past the Brooklyn apartment and seeing them through the window, he didn't confront them immediately. He planned. He schemed. He waited for the perfect moment to destroy everything Daniel loved, while positioning himself as the family's savior. The trap Marcus set was brilliant in its simplicity. It started with a business crisis Daniel couldn't refuse. Operations in California were being threatened, shipments seized, connections in danger, the kind of emergency that meant a week away minimum. "I don't want to leave you," Daniel said the morning he left, his hand on Grace's flat stomach, not knowing she was already 3 weeks pregnant, not knowing this would be the last time he'd touch her for 8 months. "I'll be here when you get back," Grace promised. She meant it, believed it, had no idea that before Daniel even landed in Los Angeles, Marcus was already moving. Marcus walked into Eternal Bloom on a Tuesday morning. Grace was alone, her grandmother at a doctor's appointment. The shop quiet except for soft jazz and the subtle fragrance of roses. He introduced himself with a smile that never reached his eyes. "I'm Daniel's cousin. We met briefly at a family gathering." It was a lie, but Grace had no way of knowing that. She'd never attended any Kong family events, had only heard about Marcus in passing as someone Daniel barely tolerated. "Daniel asked me to check on you while he's away," Marcus said smoothly. He set a leather folder on the counter. "But I'm afraid I have some difficult news to deliver. And I'm sorry you're hearing this from me rather than him." The first photograph showed Daniel at a restaurant in Beverly Hills, sitting across from a stunning woman in designer clothes, their hands touching across white tablecloth, both of them laughing like they shared secrets. Grace's heart stuttered, but she told herself it was business. Had to be business. Daniel wouldn't betray her. The second photo showed them walking on a beach at sunset, standing close, intimate, the woman's hand on his arm. And Grace's certainty began cracking at the edges, because she recognized the watch he was wearing, the one she'd given him for his birthday 2 months ago. Her name is Victoria Chun, Marcus explained, false sympathy dripping from every word. Daughter of the Chun family in San Francisco. The marriage has been arranged since they were children. The alliance is worth hundreds of millions. He paused for effect. The official engagement announcement is scheduled for next week. Grace stared at the photos, feeling like she was drowning, like the air had been sucked from the room, like every promise Daniel made was suddenly written in disappearing ink. "But we're married," she whispered. Marcus nodded sadly. "Yes, about that." He leaned forward, concerned, sympathetic, perfectly rehearsed. Daniel never filed the official paperwork with the state. The ceremony wasn't legally binding. "I checked with our family attorney this morning. The lie was smooth and devastating. And Grace had no way of knowing it was false. No reason to doubt that Daniel's own cousin would tell the truth. No understanding that the paperwork was absolutely filed and their marriage was completely legal. He wanted to tell you himself," Marcus continued. "He slid papers across the counter. But his father found out about you 2 days ago. And things got complicated very quickly. Each word was a calculated knife, designed to hit exactly where Grace was most vulnerable. The family has certain expectations, certain standards for who marries into the Kong name. And I'm sure you understand that a flower shop owner with no family connections doesn't exactly fit the profile." Grace felt herself shrinking, becoming smaller with every word. "These are separation papers," Marcus said, pointing to documents that looked official, complete with signatures and legal stamps. Daniel's signature is already there. He wants to handle this quietly before his father takes more aggressive action. Grace stared at the signature, the same sharp strokes and distinctive flourish she'd watched him write 100 times. It looked real, so completely real that doubt became certainty. "If you care about Daniel at all," Marcus said, leaning forward with fake concern, "you'll sign these and disappear from his life." Then came the threat, crystal clear, designed to hit Grace's deepest fear. His father is old-fashioned and extremely protective of the family reputation. If he discovers Daniel married someone like you secretly, well, Marcus let the silence stretch. "Let's just say your grandmother's shop wouldn't survive the week. Accidents happen all the time in this city. Insurance can be canceled. Permits can be revoked." He looked at her meaningfully. "Elderly women can slip and fall." Grace's hands shook as she picked up the pen. As she signed away her marriage and her future and the father of the child she didn't yet know she was carrying. Each stroke of her name felt like self-destruction, like choosing survival over love, like making the practical choice that tasted like ashes. Marcus took the papers with barely concealed satisfaction. "I'll make sure Daniel knows you understood, that you did the right thing." Then he was gone, and Grace stood alone in the flower shop, surrounded by beauty she couldn't see through tears, surrounded by symbols of love she no longer believed in. She did something she'd never done before. Closed Eternal Bloom in the middle of the day. Went home. Cried until there was nothing left inside her. 3 days later, she discovered she was pregnant. The timing so cruel it felt like cosmic punishment. And by then her calls to Daniel went straight to voicemail. The Brooklyn apartment had been cleared out. Every piece of evidence that they'd been together had vanished like smoke. Grace didn't know that Daniel was in California dealing with a crisis Marcus had orchestrated. Didn't know that Marcus had hacked Daniel's phone to reroute her calls. Didn't know that the apartment was cleared by Marcus's men who told Daniel she'd left and taken everything. Didn't know that every piece of the separation was constructed by someone who wanted to destroy them both. So she did what trauma taught her to do. She ran. Moved in with her grandmother's sister in Massachusetts. Told everyone she'd had a brief relationship with a businessman who wanted nothing to do with the baby. Let them assume what they wanted because the truth hurt too much to speak aloud. For 6 months, Grace hid in Springfield, working at a local flower shop, watching her body change, feeling the first kicks, whispering to her growing belly about a father who would never know them, building walls around her heart so thick that nothing could hurt her again. Meanwhile, Daniel returned to New York expecting to find Grace waiting. Found the apartment empty instead. Her grandmother claimed she'd moved to Massachusetts for a better opportunity. When Daniel went to Hannah's shop demanding answers, the old woman looked at him with contempt that cut deeper than any knife. "You got what you wanted," Hannah said coldly. "She's gone. Leave her alone. Haven't you done enough damage?" Daniel had no idea what she meant. Tried to explain he loved Grace. Wanted to find her. Needed to make sure she was okay. But Hannah just shook her head and turned her back on him. Protecting her granddaughter the only way she knew how. Marcus appeared within hours, playing the concerned cousin perfectly, showing Daniel doctored surveillance footage of Grace at JFK Airport. A note in her handwriting that Marcus had forged. "I can't do this anymore. Don't try to find me. We both knew this was temporary. I need a normal life with someone who can give me stability. I'm sorry." The note was devastating in its simplicity, hitting every insecurity Daniel had about being too dangerous, too complicated, too marked by violence to deserve someone pure like Grace. He believed it. Because why wouldn't he trust family? Why would his own blood lie about something this important? So Daniel threw himself into work with a violence that terrified even his most hardened men. Expanding territory, eliminating rivals, building his empire into something that would make his father proud, while filling the void where Grace used to be, taking risks that should have gotten him killed. Because part of him didn't care anymore if he survived. He never knew she was pregnant. Never knew she was in Massachusetts crying herself to sleep. Never knew that Marcus watched it all with satisfaction, believing he'd successfully removed Daniel's weakness, while positioning himself as the loyal family member who'd save them from scandal. But 7 months into Grace's pregnancy, her great-aunt died suddenly. And with nowhere else to go, no money left, and a baby coming soon, Grace had to return to New York. Had to move back into her grandmother's apartment above the shop. Had to accept that she was raising this child alone in a city where the father lived just miles away. Completely unaware. Hannah asked no questions. Just welcomed her granddaughter home and prepared a room for the coming baby. Grace fell back into the rhythm of the flower shop. Her belly growing larger. Her due date approaching. Her heart still broken, but buried under practical concerns about diapers and cribs. About how to be a mother when you feel like you're barely surviving. She never expected to see Daniel again. Assumed he was married to Victoria Chen by now. Building a family with someone appropriate. Living the life Marcus had described. She told herself it was better this way. Safer for everyone. That her child didn't need a father whose world was built on violence and fear. Until this morning, when he walked through her door, soaking wet from rain. When 8 months of carefully constructed lies came crashing down in the space of seconds. When the truth began clawing its way to the surface. And now standing here with his hand on her elbow, his eyes burning into hers, Grace realizes that nothing about the last 8 months was real. That someone deliberately destroyed them. And the man in front of her looks like he's about to burn the entire city down to find out who. "Sit." Daniel's voice is gentle, but leaves no room for argument. He guides Grace to the wooden stool behind the counter. His touch careful despite the fury radiating from every line of his body. She sinks down because her legs won't hold her anymore. Because 8 months of grief and lies and exhaustion are crashing over her like a wave. Because the baby is kicking violently. Like it knows its father is finally here. James has already moved to the door, flipping the shop sign to closed. His presence a silent wall between them and the outside world. Grace realizes with creeping horror that Daniel Kong doesn't ask permission, doesn't negotiate. When he wants something, he takes it. And right now what he wants is answers. "Start from the beginning," Daniel says. He crouches in front of her, so their eyes are level. His hands rest on her knees. "Tell me everything. Every word Marcus said. Every document he showed you. Every threat he made. Don't leave anything out no matter how small it seems." Grace's voice shakes as she recounts it all. The photographs. The engagement story, the forged signature, the threats against her grandmother, the way Marcus made it seem like Daniel wanted her gone, wanted a clean break, wanted to protect his family reputation. With each detail, Daniel's expression grows darker, colder, more terrifying. "The photos were real," she whispers. "I saw you with her, saw you laughing together, touching, and the signature looked exactly like yours. Victoria Chun is my business partner's daughter," Daniel says through clenched teeth. His knuckles are white where his hands grip her knees. "She's gay and engaged to her girlfriend. We had exactly one business dinner in Los Angeles to discuss port operations. Those photos were taken out of context. staged to look intimate when we were literally discussing shipping manifests. The revelation hits Grace like a physical blow. Another layer of deception peeling back. She sees it clearly now. Marcus orchestrated everything. Waited until Daniel was out of town. Created evidence that looked damning. Exploited her insecurities perfectly. I never signed separation papers, Daniel continues. His voice drops to something deadly. Our marriage is completely legal and filed with New York State. I have the certificate in my safe. I would never end what we had through a cousin. Never abandon you without facing you myself. He pauses, and there's pain beneath the anger. The fact that you believed I would hurts worse than any betrayal. He had your signature, Grace argues weakly. It looked exactly right. How was I supposed to know? Because you should have trusted me. The words hang between them. Should have called. Should have demanded to talk to me. Should have known I would never, ever leave you willingly. I did call. Grace's voice breaks. 100 times. Your number was disconnected. The apartment was empty. Your cousin told me you'd moved on. What was I supposed to think? Understanding crosses Daniel's face. Pieces clicking into place. He rerouted my calls. Cleared the apartment. Intercepted everything. He's been planning this for months. Maybe years. Waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The baby kicks hard. Daniel's eyes drop to her belly. His hand moves there instinctively. Reverently. When he feels the movement, his expression cracks completely. 8 months, he whispers. I've missed 8 months of this. 8 months of you carrying my child. 8 months of protecting you. Of being there. Of preparing. His voice breaks. And it's gone. Stolen. And I can never get that time back. Grace covers his hand with hers, feeling the tremor running through him. I thought you didn't want us. Thought we were a mistake you needed to erase. I was trying to protect everyone by staying away. Protect everyone. He repeats the words bitterly, stands abruptly, and pulls out his phone. The only person who needs protection now is Marcus. Because when I'm done with him, there won't be enough left to identify. James, I need you too. But he never finishes. Because Grace gasps. Her hand flies to her belly. Her face contorts in sudden agony. Daniel is beside her in an instant, catching her as she doubles over. What is it? What's wrong? The pain is sharp and wrong. Different from the Braxton Hicks contractions she's been having. Different from anything her doctor warned her about. When Grace looks down, she sees wetness spreading across her jeans. Realizes with horror that something is very wrong. The baby, she manages through clenched teeth. Something's happening. This isn't normal. Daniel, I'm scared. He doesn't hesitate. Sweeps her into his arms like she weighs nothing. James, car now. Call Dr. Martinez. Tell her we're coming in. This is an emergency. Move. The shop door flies open. They're outside in the rain. Daniel's Mercedes already pulling up to the curb. He slides into the back seat with Grace cradled against him. His hand pressing against her belly like he can protect their child through sheer will. Mount Sinai. Daniel barks to the driver. Break every traffic law. I'll handle the tickets. Just get us there now. The car lurches forward. Grace cries out as another contraction hits. Stronger than the first. Her nails dig into Daniel's arm hard enough to draw blood. But he doesn't flinch. Just holds her tighter. Stay with me, he murmurs against her hair. Both of you stay with me. I just got you back. I'm not losing either of you. Do you hear me? You're going to be fine. The baby is going to be fine. I won't allow anything else. Grace can hear him making calls even as he holds her. His voice shifting to that cold command that makes people jump. I need Dr. Martinez waiting when we arrive. Operating room prepped. I don't care what she's doing. Cancel it. This is priority 1. Another call. Call my father. Tell him family emergency. No, I will not elaborate. Just do it. The city blurs past the windows. Rain and lights and traffic that parts before them. Because the driver knows exactly what Daniel Kang's urgency means. Knows that lives hang in the balance. Grace floats in and out of consciousness. Pain and fear blending together until she can't tell them apart. Tell me about the baby, Daniel says suddenly. Urgently. Like keeping her talking will keep her present. What do we know? Boy or girl? Due date? Anything. Tell me everything I missed. I don't know, Grace whispers. I wanted it to be a surprise. Wanted to find out when they were born. The due date is 3 weeks away. This is too early. Daniel, what if something's wrong? What if I did something wrong? Stop. He cuts her off firmly. You did nothing wrong. This is stress. Trauma. The shock of seeing me. your body reacting to 8 months of carrying this alone. But you're not alone anymore. You hear me? Never alone again. The hospital appears. Suddenly, they're surrounded by medical staff. Grace being transferred to a gurney. Daniel refusing to let go of her hand. Following them through automatic doors and fluorescent hallways. A doctor with kind eyes and steel in her voice takes charge. Blood pressure is dangerously high, Dr. Martinez says crisply. Checking monitors. Baby's heartbeat is strong but erratic. We need to get this under control immediately, or we're looking at emergency C-section. She turns to Daniel. Mr. Kong, you need to step back and let us work. No. The word is flat. Final. I'm not leaving her. I've been gone for 8 months. I'm not moving. Dr. Martinez looks at him. Really looks. And whatever she sees in his face makes her nod once. Fine. But stay out of the way. Grace, I need you to focus on breathing. We're going to stabilize you and the baby. But I need you to work with me. The next 4 hours blur together in a nightmare of medical intervention. Medications to lower blood pressure. Fluids to prevent preterm labor. Monitors beeping steady confirmation that the baby's heart keeps beating. Despite everything, Daniel never lets go of Grace's hand. Never stops talking to her in low, steady tones. About anything and everything. About the future they're going to have. About teaching their child to make flower arrangements. About protecting them both from anything that could ever hurt them again. Finally, Dr. Martinez returns with news that makes them both exhale. Contractions have stopped. Baby's vitals are normalizing. You're not in labor. She fixes Grace with a stern look. But complete bed rest from now until delivery. No work. No stress. Nothing that could trigger this again. She turns to Daniel. And you. Whatever caused this level of stress needs to be resolved immediately. She can't handle any more emotional shocks. It's handled, Daniel says. The promise in his voice is absolute. She's safe now. They both are. I'll make sure of it. They're moved to a private suite on the top floor. A room that looks more like a luxury hotel than a hospital. Floor-to-ceiling windows with views of the Manhattan skyline. Grace realizes dimly that this is what Daniel Kang's money and power buy. The best care. The best rooms. The best of everything. But also the isolation of people who live above normal rules. I need to make some calls, Daniel says once Grace is settled. Once the monitors show everything stable. But I'm not leaving this room. Whatever I do, I'm staying right here where you can see me. Grace nods, exhausted, and watches as Daniel pulls out his phone. Watches his face transform from the gentle man holding her hand to the feared boss who controls an empire. What happens next is both terrifying and satisfying in equal measure. Find Marcus, Daniel says into the phone. His voice drops to something inhuman. I don't care where he is. I don't care what he's doing. Bring him to the warehouse in Red Hook. Alive. I want him alive and conscious. And make sure he understands exactly why this is happening. Then call after call. Systematically dismantling his cousin's life with surgical precision. Freezing bank accounts. Yes, all of them. Personal and business. Every account with his name on it. Revoking family privileges. He no longer has access to family properties. Change all the codes. Today. Canceling credit cards. Every card. Cut them all off. I want him to feel what it's like to have nothing. Stripping security clearances. He's out. No more family meetings. No more information. He's a ghost. Evicting him from his apartment. I own that building. Get his things on the street by tonight. Seizing his car. It was purchased with family money. Take it back. Destroying his reputation. Spread the word. Marcus Kong is no longer under family protection. Anyone who does business with him answers to me. With each call, Marcus Kang's entire existence is erased. Like he never existed. Grace should be horrified. Should be afraid of this side of Daniel. But instead, she feels something dark and primal. The satisfaction of watching someone who hurt her family face consequences. The relief of knowing Daniel will protect them with everything he has. The safety that comes from being claimed by someone dangerous. Your grandmother, Daniel says suddenly. Turning to her. She needs to know you're okay. James is bringing her here now. And Grace, I owe her an apology. She protected you when she thought I'd abandoned you. That's loyalty I respect. Within the hour, Hannah arrives looking terrified. But when she sees Grace safe in the hospital bed, when Daniel bows deeply to her in traditional Korean respect, when he explains what happened and promises it will never happen again, something in the old woman's face softens. You'll protect them, Hannah says. Not a question. Daniel nods once. With my life. With everything I have. They're my world now. Nothing comes before them. Not family. Not business. Not my own safety. Nothing. Hannah studies him for a long moment. Then nods. The shop needs strong hands. I'm too old to run it alone anymore. Grace realizes her grandmother just gave them her blessing. Just accepted Daniel into their family. Just acknowledged that maybe this dangerous man is exactly what they need. That night, with Grace finally sleeping peacefully, with her grandmother dozing in a chair nearby, with guards posted at the door, Daniel stands at the window looking out over New York City and makes a vow to himself, to his unborn child, to the woman who changed everything. Marcus Kong will pay for every moment stolen, every tear shed, every month of fear and loneliness. And when it's over, when justice is served in the shadows where Daniel operates, his family will finally be safe, finally be together, finally be free from the lies that almost destroyed them. And nothing, absolutely nothing, will ever separate them again. 3 days later, Grace is released from Mount Sinai. Strict orders to remain on complete bed rest until delivery. Daniel takes her not to his penthouse in Manhattan. Too many eyes watching there, but to a house in the Berkshires. A sprawling estate hidden among Massachusetts hills. Traditional architecture married to state-of-the-art security, where privacy and protection are built into every stone. Where she can heal without eyes watching from buildings across the street. The drive north is quiet. Grace dozing against Daniel's shoulder in the back of the Mercedes. James drives. The city gives way to countryside. When she wakes, they're pulling through gates that close behind them with the finality of a vault ceiling. Where are we? Grace asks. Daniel helps her out of the car gently, supporting her weight like she's made of crystal. Somewhere Marcus doesn't know about. Somewhere my father can't drop in unannounced. Somewhere you can rest without looking over your shoulder. He guides her toward the house. This is ours. I bought it 2 years ago as a fallback. Never thought I'd bring you here like this. The house is beautiful in an understated way. Exposed beams and stone fireplaces. Walls of windows overlooking forests that seem to stretch forever. A master bedroom on the ground floor converted into something between a bedroom and a medical suite. Hospital bed available if needed, but hidden behind screens. Monitors nearby, but discreet. Everything designed for Grace's comfort while ensuring their baby stays safe. Your grandmother is in the guest house, Daniel explains. He settles Grace into bed, tucking blankets around her with the same precision he brings to everything. She insisted on coming. Said she wasn't leaving you alone with me until she was sure I knew how to take care of pregnant women. He smiles slightly. So, I have a Korean grandmother supervising me now. This is my life. Grace laughs for the first time in days, imagining tiny, fierce Hannah ordering around the feared Mafia boss. Daniel's smile fades. I need to go handle something, he says carefully. Grace knows exactly what he means. Knows where he's going. Knows what's about to happen to Marcus. She should protest. Should ask him not to do this. Should try to be the moral voice. But instead, she just nods. Because some betrayals deserve punishment. Some violations of trust require consequences that happen outside courtrooms and legal systems. Don't tell me the details, Grace says quietly, taking his hand. Just come back to me. Come back safe. Our baby needs a father. I always come back, Daniel promises. He kisses her forehead, her nose, her lips. Marcus is the one who won't be coming back from this. But you're right. You don't need to know how. You just need to know that after tonight, he can never hurt us again. He leaves at sunset. Grace watches through windows as the Mercedes disappears down the long driveway. Watches until the taillights are swallowed by trees. Then she closes her eyes. Tries not to think about what's happening in a warehouse in Red Hook. Tries not to imagine the confrontation that's been building for 8 months. Tries to focus on the baby moving inside her. On the future they'll have once this last ghost is exorcised. In the warehouse, Marcus Kong is tied to a metal chair bolted to concrete floors. His expensive suit torn and dirty. His face already showing bruises from the men who brought him here. When Daniel walks in, flanked by James and 3 other lieutenants, Marcus's bravado crumbles into something like terror. Cousin, Marcus tries, voice shaking. This is a misunderstanding. I can explain. You can't. Daniel cuts him off. His voice is conversational, almost pleasant, which is somehow more terrifying than shouting. I've spent 3 days reconstructing everything you did. Every lie you told. Every document you forged. Every call you intercepted. Every piece of my life you destroyed because you wanted power you didn't earn. Respect you didn't deserve. He circles Marcus slowly, letting silence stretch, letting fear build. And you thought taking my family from me would somehow make you worthy of the Kong name. He stops in front of Marcus. You showed Grace photos of me with Victoria Chun. Photos you had someone follow me to take. Photos you edited to look intimate when we were discussing business. His voice drops lower. And you told her I was engaged. That our marriage wasn't legal. That I wanted her gone. She was a weakness, Marcus spits. Trying to regain some control. You were distracted. Unfocused. The family needed you sharp, not soft. I did you a favor. The blow comes fast. Daniel's fist connecting with Marcus's jaw hard enough to snap his head back. Blood splatters concrete. When Daniel speaks again, his voice is glacial. She wasn't a weakness. She was the only thing that made me human. The only person who saw me as more than the Kong heir. More than a weapon. More than the family business. He crouches in front of Marcus, meeting his eyes. And you took her from me. Took 8 months of my child's life from me. Made her think she was alone and abandoned and not good enough. His voice is soft now, which is worse. And for what? For power you were never going to get. For respect you'll never have. For a position that was never yours to claim. He stands. I've already destroyed everything you had. Your money is gone. Your apartment. Your cars. Your connections. Every person who ever took your call now knows you're dead to the family. He pauses. But that's not enough. Because you didn't just steal from me. You terrorized a pregnant woman. You threatened an elderly grandmother. You committed the unforgivable sin of making Grace Lee afraid. Daniel's expression hardens. And that requires a different kind of justice. What happens next takes 3 hours. And when it's over, Marcus Kong no longer exists as anything recognizable. Broken in ways that won't heal. Marked permanently as someone who crossed the wrong line with the wrong person. Daniel gives one final order. Put him on a container ship to Singapore. Dump him at the port with nothing. No ID. No money. No way back. Let him try to rebuild from zero the way he forced Grace to do. He looks at Marcus one last time. And if I ever hear his name again, if he ever tries to contact anyone in this family, if he ever so much as thinks about New York, finish what we started here tonight. By midnight, Daniel is back in the Berkshires, washing blood from his hands in a bathroom downstairs so Grace doesn't see. Changing clothes. Composing himself. When he enters their bedroom, she's awake. Reading by lamplight. She doesn't ask. Just opens her arms and lets him collapse against her. It's done, he whispers into her hair. He can't hurt you anymore. Can't hurt anyone anymore. And I'm sorry. Sorry you were ever in his crosshairs. Sorry I didn't see what he was sooner. Sorry I wasn't there to protect you when you needed me most. You're here now, Grace says simply, running her fingers through his hair. That's what matters. We're together now, and we have 3 weeks to figure out how to be a family before this baby arrives. 3 weeks to heal, to plan, to decide what our life looks like. She pulls back to look at him seriously. And Daniel, I need you to promise me something. Anything, he says without hesitation. Promise me we're done with secrets. Done with hiding. Done with living in the shadows. I can't raise a child like that. Can't spend my life afraid that someone else will try to use me against you. She takes a breath. We need to be public. Legitimate. Safe. Or I can't do this. Daniel is quiet for a long moment, weighing what she's asking against everything he knows about his world. About the dangers of visibility. About the targets that come with being known as his family. But then he looks at Grace's face. At her fierce determination. At the belly holding his child. And he realizes she's right. Realizes that protecting them means more than just muscle and money. It means changing the rules of the game entirely. Okay, he says finally. We'll go public. I'll introduce you to my father officially. We'll have a proper wedding that everyone sees. We'll make it clear that you and this baby are untouchable. That anyone who threatens you answers to the entire Kong family, not just me. He pauses. And we'll start legitimizing the businesses. Moving everything legal. Building something our child can inherit without blood on their hands. Grace exhales relief. That's all I want. A normal life. Or as normal as we can manage. I'll be the wife of Daniel Kong. I'll deal with whatever that means. But I want our baby to have choices. To not be trapped by family legacy. To be able to walk away if that's what they want. They'll have choices, Daniel promises. I'll make sure of it. And Grace, I'm going to spend the rest of my life making up for the 8 months we lost. For every moment you were alone. For every time you cried yourself to sleep thinking, I didn't want you. His voice is fierce. I'm going to love you so completely that you never doubt again. Never fear again. Never wonder if you're enough. Because you're everything. You're the reason I breathe. They fall asleep wrapped around each other, the baby kicking occasionally between them. And for the first time since that morning in the flower shop, Grace feels something like peace. Like maybe they actually have a chance. Like maybe love and danger can coexist if you're willing to fight for it. The next 2 weeks pass in a strange domestic bubble. Daniel working remotely from the Berkshires while staying within earshot of Grace at all times. Hannah teaching him traditional Korean cooking in the kitchen. Grace resting and reading and watching her body prepare for birth. And slowly, carefully, they start planning a future that feels possible. Daniel's father Richard visits on day 10. This imposing man in his 70s with steel gray hair and eyes that have seen everything. Grace braces for rejection, for judgment, for exactly the kind of disapproval that Marcus weaponized against her. Instead, Richard takes one look at his son's face, at the way Daniel orbits Grace protectively, at the way she meets the old man's gaze without flinching, and he simply nods once. You make him human, Richard says to Grace. I've watched him become harder every year. More like me, more like the business requires. But with you, he's something else, something better. He sits down across from her. And that child will be the first Kong born into a family that chooses love over strategy. So welcome to the family, Grace Lee. You've already survived the worst of us. Everything else will be easy. They tell him about Marcus, about the deception and the manipulation. Richard's face goes dark with fury. That boy always had ambition, but no wisdom. I should have seen it. Should have known he'd become a problem. He looks at Daniel. You handled it? Permanently, Daniel confirms. Richard nods. Good. Family is everything. But betrayal from blood is unforgivable. You protected what's yours. That's what a Kong does. He leans forward. Now let's talk about how we're introducing Grace and my grandchild to society. Because we're going to do this right. We're going to make it clear that this family is untouchable. 3 days later, Grace goes into labor at 2 in the morning. Her water breaking while she's sleeping. Daniel is awake instantly. Already moving. Already calling Dr. Martinez, who's been on standby at a nearby private hospital. Already getting Grace to the car while Hannah follows with prepared bags. The drive takes 15 minutes that feel like hours. Labor is long and difficult. Grace's blood pressure spiking twice. Moments where Dr. Martinez looks concerned and Daniel turns into something carved from ice and fury, willing the universe itself to keep his family safe. Finally, after 18 hours of labor, their daughter enters the world, screaming her rage at being forced out of warmth and safety. She's perfect, Dr. Martinez says, placing the baby on Grace's chest. Completely healthy. Strong lungs. Good color. You did it, Grace. She's here. Daniel stares at this tiny human they created. This little girl with a full head of dark hair and Grace's delicate features and his intense eyes. Something inside him breaks and remakes itself simultaneously. Every priority he ever had rearranging around this single truth. He would burn the world to ashes to keep her safe. What's her name? Hannah asks from the corner. Grace looks at Daniel. This question they've been debating for weeks. Suddenly she knows. Sophia, Grace says. Sophia Lee Kong. Wisdom and strength. Because she's going to need both. Sophia, Daniel repeats, letting his daughter grip his finger with her tiny hand. You're the beginning of something new, little one. The first Kong who gets to choose her own path. And I promise you'll never doubt that you're loved. Never feel abandoned. Never wonder if you're safe. His voice is thick with emotion. Because I'll be there every single day of your life. Watching. Protecting. Loving you and your mother more than anything else in this world. They stay at the hospital for 3 days. Daniel never leaving Grace's side. Learning to change diapers and swaddle and recognize different types of cries. When they finally return to the Berkshires, it's as a complete family. Mother and father and daughter. Hannah watching over them all with satisfaction that maybe, just maybe, this dangerous man is exactly what her granddaughter needed all along. 6 weeks after Sophia is born, they return to New York for the wedding that will make everything official. The ceremony that will announce to the world that Grace Lee is Daniel Kang's wife and Sophia is his heir. protected by everything the family name means. The venue is the New York Botanical Garden in the Bronx. Cherry blossoms imported and forced to bloom out of season, creating a canopy of pink and white that transforms the conservatory into something from a dream. The guest list is carefully curated. Daniel's father and the legitimate side of the family business. Grace's grandmother and childhood friends. Daniel's most trusted lieutenants. Business partners who exist in the gray space between legal and illegal. And notably, no one from the old guard who might question this match. No one who would dare voice disapproval within Richard Kang's hearing. Grace wears a custom hanbok in ivory and gold. Traditional silk embroidered with peonies and cranes. Symbols of prosperity and fidelity. She carries Sophia against her chest in a silk sling. Because separating from her daughter, even for a ceremony, feels wrong. Feels like tempting fate after how close they came to losing everything. Daniel wears a modern black suit that somehow manages to look both contemporary and respectful of tradition. When he sees Grace walking toward him through cherry blossoms with their daughter sleeping peacefully against her heart, his expression cracks with an emotion he no longer bothers hiding. Absolute, consuming love mixed with the fierce protectiveness of someone who knows how easily it can all be taken away. The ceremony is conducted in Korean and English both, honoring both languages, both cultures. When they exchange vows, they're not reading from scripts, but speaking from the raw honesty of people who've survived the worst and chosen each other anyway. 8 months ago, Daniel begins, his voice carrying across the assembled guests. I lost you because I wasn't vigilant enough, wasn't suspicious enough, didn't protect what mattered most. He pauses. And I lived in a world without color, without joy, without purpose beyond finding you again. His eyes never leave hers. Today I promise that nothing will ever separate us again. No deception, no family obligation, no business crisis, no threat from any direction. You and Sophia are my world, my reason for every breath, my priority above everything else. He takes her hand. And I choose you in this life and every life to come. I choose our family. I choose love over power, connection over control, and I promise to spend every day proving you made the right choice, trusting me with your heart. Grace's response comes with tears streaming down her face, her hand resting on Sophia's back. 8 months ago, I believed I wasn't enough for your world, that my humble origins and simple dreams couldn't exist alongside your complexity and danger. Her voice is steady despite the tears. I carried our daughter alone, speaking to her about a father I thought would never know her, building walls around my heart so the grief couldn't destroy me completely. She looks at Daniel, really looks at him. Today, I know the truth. That love doesn't see boundaries or class or family legacy. It just exists, unchangeable and unbreakable. She squeezes his hand. And I choose you, Daniel Kang, the man who tears down empires but holds our daughter with hands that tremble. The man everyone fears, but who's terrified of failing us. The man who gave me safety I never knew I needed and love I never thought I deserved. Her voice breaks slightly. I choose you in this life and all lives to come. When they kiss, Sophia wakes and makes a small sound of protest at being squished between her parents. The entire congregation laughs, the tension breaking into something warm and genuine. Even Richard Kang smiles. This hard man who built an empire on ruthlessness looking at his son with something like pride. Like understanding that maybe the strength to love completely is harder than the strength to destroy. The reception is a blend of Korean and American traditions. Tables laden with both bibimbap and prime rib. Traditional rice wine and expensive champagne. Daniel makes the rounds with Grace on his arm and Sophia sleeping against his shoulder, introducing them officially as his family, making it clear through posture and tone that they are untouchable, that anyone who threatens them faces the full weight of Kang retribution. Victoria Chin appears with her girlfriend Melissa. She's beautiful, Victoria says. Grace recognizes her from Marcus's photographs. Understands now how those images were manipulated. And I'm sorry about the photos, Victoria continues. About how my friendship with Daniel was weaponized against you. If I'd known, I would have said something sooner. It's not your fault, Grace says sincerely. Marcus was very good at making lies look like truth. But it's over now. And I'd love to actually get to know you. The real you. Not the version Marcus created. They talk easily. Naturally. Daniel watches from across the room with James. She's adapting well, James observes. Most people meeting this many criminals at once would be terrified. But she's treating your deadliest enforcer like a favorite uncle and talking business strategy with your accountant. Daniel smiles. She sees people, not positions or reputations. Just people. It's her gift and possibly her greatest danger in my world. But I'll protect that part of her. Make sure she never has to lose that light. As the evening winds down, Richard Kong stands to make a speech. This man who rarely speaks publicly commanding instant silence with his presence. My son has made me proud in many ways, Richard begins. Building our business beyond what I thought possible. Commanding respect through intelligence and strategy. He pauses. But I'm most proud of him today. Because he's done something I never managed. He chose love without weakness. Chose family without sacrificing strength. Chose to build something new rather than just maintain what came before. He looks at Grace. Grace, you're not just marrying into the Kong family. You're changing it. Making it something better. Something that can exist in daylight rather than just shadows. Then he looks at Sophia sleeping in Daniel's arms. And Sophia, my granddaughter, you're the first of a new generation. The first who gets to decide who you want to be rather than who you must be. And I promise you'll have your grandfather's protection and resources as you figure that out. The applause is genuine. Grace sees Hannah wiping tears. Sees how even the hardest men in the room are moved by this moment. By the acknowledgement that change is possible. That evolution doesn't mean weakness. She understands that she didn't just marry Daniel Kong. She became part of something larger. Something powerful. Something that could be used for protection and building rather than just control and destruction. That night, in a suite at the Plaza Hotel, with Sophia sleeping peacefully in a bassinet nearby and guards posted discreetly in the hallway, Daniel and Grace finally have a moment alone. A moment to process everything that's happened. Everything they've survived. Everything they've built from the ashes of Marcus's betrayal. Are you scared? Daniel asks, pulling Grace against him. Both of them exhausted, but too wired to sleep. Scared of what being my wife publicly means. Of the target it puts on you. Of the life you've chosen. Terrified, Grace admits honestly. But I was more scared when I thought I'd lost you. More scared raising Sophia alone. More scared living in constant fear that someone would take even that away. She looks up at him. At least now we're facing it together. At least I know you're beside me. She pauses. And Daniel, I've been thinking about the flower shop. What about it? Genuine curiosity in his voice. I want to expand it. Turn it into something bigger. Use your resources to create a chain that employs women who need second chances. Who need safety. Who need legitimate income in a world that doesn't always offer those things. Her eyes are bright with the idea. I want to take something beautiful and make it useful. Make it a bridge between your world and mine. Daniel is quiet for a moment, considering, then smiles. You want to launder my money through flowers. I want to give people opportunities, Grace corrects. And yes, make your businesses more legitimate in the process. Sophia deserves a father who doesn't have to hide what he does. And I can help with that. I can be the bridge between who you were and who you're becoming. Then we'll do it, Daniel says without hesitation. We'll start with the Manhattan location. Then Brooklyn, Queens. Eventually, every borough. We'll call it Eternal Bloom, after your grandmother's original shop. He pulls her closer. And it'll be the legitimate face of the Kong family going forward. Flowers and beauty instead of fear. Though, he adds with a dark smile, the fear still exists underneath. Just better hidden. They fall asleep planning their future. Planning how to raise Sophia in a world that's both dangerous and beautiful. How to teach her strength without cruelty. Wisdom without cynicism. How to give her the choice they never had. To walk away or step into the family legacy with eyes open. 3 months later, the first new Eternal Bloom location opens in Brooklyn Heights. A beautiful space that's part flower shop, part community center. Employing 15 women who need fresh starts. Grace runs it with the same precision she brings to everything. Creating beauty while quietly helping Daniel legitimize his operations one arrangement at a time. Sophia grows. Hitting milestones that Daniel documents obsessively. First smile at 6 weeks. First laugh at 3 months. He's there for all of it. Cutting business meetings short to make it home for bedtime. Delegating more to trusted lieutenants so he can be present. Everyone in his organization understands that family time is sacred. that interrupting it better be life or death urgent. Hannah eventually moves into the guest house at the Berkshires permanently, becoming the grandmother every child should have, teaching Sophia Korean lullabies and traditional recipes, telling stories about surviving war and building businesses from nothing. She watches Grace and Daniel with satisfaction, seeing how they've built something real from tragedy. The threats never fully disappear. There are always rivals testing boundaries, always someone who thinks they can leverage Daniel's family against him. But they learn quickly. Grace Lee Kong is protected by something more dangerous than money or guns. She's protected by Daniel Kang's absolute commitment to her safety. And anyone who even looks at her wrong discovers that some lines, once crossed, result in immediate and devastating consequences. On Sophia's first birthday, they have a traditional Daljanchi celebration, the ceremony where she chooses objects that predict her future. When she reaches for the book instead of the money or the gavel, Grace laughs with relief. Daniel looks secretly disappointed that his daughter might be choosing scholarship over the family business. But then Sophia grabs the flower next, and they both understand. Their daughter will be her own person, making her own choices, building her own path. And that's exactly what they wanted all along. Do you have regrets? Grace asks Daniel that night, after guests have left and Sophia is sleeping, after another milestone marked and celebrated. About how we got here. About the 8 months we lost? About Marcus? About any of it? Daniel pulls her close, both of them standing at the window overlooking their property, overlooking the life they've built from ruins. I regret the time stolen, he says honestly. Regret that you suffered alone. Regret that I wasn't there for the pregnancy. But I don't regret us. Don't regret fighting to get you back. Don't regret destroying Marcus. Don't regret any choice that led to this moment. He turns her to face him. Because Grace, you and Sophia are worth every piece of hell we walked through. Worth every sacrifice. Worth everything I have and everything I am. And I'd do it all again if it meant ending up here with you. Even the pain? She asks. He nods. Especially the pain. Because it taught us what matters. Taught us who we could trust. Taught us that love is worth fighting for even when it seems impossible. He kisses her forehead. Especially when it seems impossible. And our daughter will grow up knowing that. Knowing that her parents chose each other against all odds. Against family expectations. Against betrayal and separation. And that nothing could keep us apart once we found our way back. Years pass. Eternal Bloom expands to 12 locations across New York and into Connecticut and Massachusetts, employing over 200 women, becoming known for both beautiful arrangements and second-chance opportunities. Grace becomes quietly powerful in her own right, respected in both legitimate business circles and in the shadowy world that her husband still partly inhabits. Daniel gradually shifts the family businesses toward legal operations, using Grace's model of legitimate fronts that actually serve the community. While he'll never be fully clean, never fully separate from the world he was born into, he's different. Changed. Someone who uses power for protection rather than just control. Even his father admits that maybe love wasn't weakness after all. Maybe it was the evolution their family needed. Sophia grows into a child who's equally comfortable in boardrooms and flower shops, who speaks Korean and English and the language of flowers her mother taught her, who understands that her father is both feared and loving, both dangerous and gentle, and she never doubts for a second that she's protected, loved, and free to become whoever she wants to be. On their 5th anniversary, Daniel takes Grace back to the New York Botanical Garden where they renewed their vows. They walk through cherry blossoms that are real this time, blooming naturally. He pulls out a letter he wrote the day Sophia was born, but never gave her. Read it, he says. Grace unfolds paper worn from being carried, from being read privately. The words are simple but devastating. Grace, today our daughter was born, and I finally understand what people mean when they say love changes everything. Because I am fundamentally different than I was 18 hours ago. I am softer and harder simultaneously, more vulnerable and more dangerous, more human and more monster. And it's because of you. Because you chose to trust me with something as precious as your heart, your body, your child. And I promise I will never take that trust for granted. I will spend every day earning it, proving it, honoring it, even on days when I fail, even when I make mistakes, even when my world threatens to swallow us all. I will always choose you, always choose our family, always choose love over everything else. And Sophia will grow up knowing that her parents' love story started with tragedy but became something unbreakable. That separation only made us stronger. That betrayal taught us who to trust. That the 8 months we lost were worth the lifetime we gained. Thank you for coming back to me, for forgiving me, for building this life with me, for making me believe I deserve this happiness. I love you more than words can hold, more than actions can show, more than any expression of devotion could ever communicate. Today, tomorrow, forever. Daniel. Grace is crying by the time she finishes. Daniel wipes her tears with thumbs that are gentle despite everything they've done. I mean every word. Then and now. You're my miracle, my redemption, my reason, and I will never stop choosing you. If this story of betrayal, second chances, and building family from ashes touched your heart, hit that subscribe button right now. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. New York? California? Massachusetts? I want to know where this story has reached. Tell me what you would do if faced with a choice between safety and love. Would you sign those papers? Would you run? Would you fight? Share this with someone who believes that true love finds its way back no matter how many obstacles stand in the way. Because sometimes the longest separations lead to the strongest bonds. Sometimes what's broken can be rebuilt into something even more beautiful. And remember, love doesn't ask permission from family tradition or social expectations. It just exists, waiting for us to be brave enough to choose it, to fight for it, to protect it against everything that tries to destroy it. In a world where nothing is certain, where danger lurks around every corner, where betrayal can come from blood itself, love might be the only thing worth risking everything for. Grace and Daniel prove that some reunions are worth 8 months of tears. Some families are worth fighting empires to protect. And some stories that start with accidentally running into each other end with purposefully building a life together that nothing can tear apart. Thank you for watching this journey with me. Thank you for staying until the end. And remember that every great love story has moments where it seems impossible, where separation feels permanent, where hope seems foolish. But the ones that survive, the ones that last, are the ones where both people choose each other again and again and again. No matter what stands in their way, no matter how much time has passed, no matter how many lies tried to keep them apart, they choose love, they choose family, they choose each other. And that choice makes all the difference.